Some people win by talking, but the ones who win consistently, the ones who lead, who shape outcomes, who move behind the scene, they don't need to talk much at all. They shut up, they observe, they listen for what others miss, and then they strike at the right moment. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, those who learn to move in silence become terrifying. Niccolò Machiavelli, Renaissance thinker, political strategist, realist of the highest order, understood this better than anyone. "A prudent man should always follow in the footsteps of great men," he wrote, "and imitate those who have been supreme." And what did the greatest leaders have in common? They were never loud. They were deliberate, measured, calculated. They said only what needed to be said, and often they said nothing at all. This is not a video about silence for the sake of peace. This is silence as a weapon. Let's begin. The average person speaks to be understood. The powerful, they speak to influence, or not at all. Most people over-explain. They reveal their emotions, their thoughts, their intentions, thinking this earns trust. But Machiavelli knew, the more you say, the more others can use against you. He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command. Command is not about talking, it's about presence. And the quieter you are, the more gravity your words carry when you finally speak. The loud are predictable, the silent are dangerous. There is one rule Machiavelli would tattoo into the minds of leaders: never reveal a plan before it's complete. You might feel the urge to talk through your next move, to share your vision, your goals, your ambition. But Machiavelli would warn, speaking too soon is a form of self-sabotage. Why? Because when you talk, you invite resistance. You give others time to form opinions, launch attacks, or copy your ideas. It is better to act and then explain, than explain and then act. Powerful people keep their motives hidden until there is nothing anyone can do to stop the outcome. They don't argue, they don't post every move, they don't seek applause along the way. They move, then win. In today's world, we're told to be transparent, open, vulnerable, authentic. But Machiavelli would see this differently, because transparency is power when you control it, not when it's expected, not when it's demanded. When you give people everything too quickly, your thoughts, emotions, motives, you remove your mystery. And mystery is a kind of currency. It forces others to guess. It keeps them slightly unsure. It makes them work harder to understand you. And that imbalance? That's power. Don't lie, but don't spill. There's something magnetic about the person who says very little. They're in the meeting but speak once, with weight. They don't respond to every message. They don't announce their moves, but their results speak loudly. This is not about arrogance. It's about knowing your value. Machiavelli believed that silence builds tension. It gives your presence an edge, an unpredictability that forces people to take you seriously. If they know too much, they'll take you for granted. But if they're unsure of what you're thinking, they'll tread carefully. And in power dynamics, carefulness is influence. In every conversation, there is a frame, a lens through which meaning is shaped. If you speak impulsively, emotionally, or out of insecurity, you let others set the frame. But Machiavelli taught rulers to control context. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. So if you do speak, do it from center. Say less than you know. Make every word carry intention. And when in doubt, say nothing. Because silence doesn't mean weakness. Silence means you won't see me coming. The loudest people in the room are rarely the most powerful. They're usually just the most insecure, True manipulators thrive on one thing: your reaction. They bait you with guilt. They pressure you with urgency. They provoke you with insults disguised as questions. But when you stop giving them noise, when you meet manipulation with silence, air power breaks. Machiavelli would remind you, never interrupt an enemy who is making a mistake. Silence forces others to face their own games. It gives them nothing to hold on to, nothing to twist, nothing to weaponize. And in that quiet, you win. Most people are easy to read. You know how they'll react. You know what offends them. You know what they'll say before they say it. Predictability is comfort, and comfort is weakness in strategy. Machiavelli believed that unpredictability created power. It is a common failing of man not to take account of tempests during fair weather. The strongest mind is not just intelligent, it's unreadable. To become unpredictable, stop explaining your every decision. Delay your reactions. Say less in conflict. Let your next move speak for itself. People fear what they can't predict, and what people fear, they respect. The world is full of people who love to debate, to argue, to prove themselves right. But here's the truth. Arguments rarely change minds. They just create more noise. Machiavelli didn't believe in wasting energy on debate. He believed in winning over time, through action, results, and endurance. Men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. In other words, make your presence undeniable. Make your results speak for themselves. Let your enemies talk. And while they talk, you keep moving. The one who stays calm always ends up leading. Here's something powerful that most people overlook. When you stop explaining, you create psychological space. People wonder where they stand with you. They think twice before speaking. They second-guess their assumptions. That's not cruelty. That's control of perceived value. Machiavelli understood that silence builds tension, and tension creates meaning. If your words are too easy, they lose weight. But if you speak sparingly, strategically, your presence grows sharper, more defined, more memorable. Sometimes, the most powerful sentence is the one you don't say. This isn't about being secretive for no reason. It's about knowing the difference between what's sacred and what's expendable. Your plans, your beliefs, your boundaries, your goals. Machiavelli believed that rulers should be both lion and fox, strong enough to act and clever enough to protect the strategy behind the action. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. That means keep your vision close, your intentions closer, and your execution loud enough only when it's done. Because the more they know about you, the easier it is to disarm you. Protect your depth. Let them underestimate your surface. In any room, whether it's a meeting, a negotiation, or a casual conversation, someone is leading the energy. And often, it's not the loudest voice. It's the one who holds stillness like a sword. People look to those who seem unaffected. They study those who don't rush to speak. They project power onto the quietest person in the room because they're forced to wonder, what are they thinking? Do they know something we don't? Why aren't they reacting? Machiavelli knew that power in groups isn't taken. It's assumed by those who don't compete for it. So next time you're in a room full of noise, don't try to be heard. Try to be felt. Most people flinch under pressure. They rush to fill silence. They scramble to justify themselves. They try to say the right thing, quickly, perfectly, constantly. But Machiavelli admired those who could hold tension, who didn't blink when tested. There is no avoiding war, he wrote. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others. That principle applies to words, too. When you're in a moment of tension, don't speak to reduce the discomfort. Let it rise. Let others reveal themselves. Silence in pressure isn't passive. It's dominating, because the one who doesn't flinch makes everyone else question their own footing. Machiavelli didn't just study rulers, he studied routines. And one thing stood out across powerful figures. They had quiet patterns. Morning solitude, private planning, controlled circles, limited emotional leakage. They weren't everywhere. They weren't easy to access. They didn't dilute their energy through constant exposure. The more noise you create, the easier it is to map you, predict you, control you. But when your patterns are intentional, quiet, guarded, focused, you become difficult to read. And what people can't read, they can't control. In the age of constant sharing, there's pressure to define yourself. What you believe, what your values are, what your next step is, what your boundaries are, what your brand is. But Machiavelli would ask, why are you narrating yourself to your enemies? Let others guess. Let them misjudge you. Let them underestimate you. While they're crafting theories, you're crafting results. Don't tell them who you are. Show them what you do. And by the time they realize, it'll be too late to stop it. The strong act, the insecure announce. This is the sweet spot. You don't stay silent forever. You speak at exactly the right moment, when it lands with weight. Machiavelli knew this instinctively. There is nothing more difficult to take in hand, he wrote, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. So what do? You wait. You listen. You learn the terrain. You prepare in silence. And when the moment comes, you speak with clarity, finality, and presence. A single sentence spoken from strength can cut through volumes of noise, because silence gives your voice something rare, impact. There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't scramble, doesn't overstep. It simply waits. Machiavelli understood that those who move slowly and deliberately tend to be the ones who end up on top. Why? Because restraint is strategic. It keeps people guessing. It buys you time to plan. It keeps your emotions out of the hands of your enemies. Loudness is for people who want to be noticed. Silence is for people who want to win. Now, let's be clear. Silence is not an eternal vow. There comes a time to speak. But when you do, it should be surgical. Speak when you've already decided. You've already acted. You've already built leverage. Machiavelli would never tell you to disappear. He'd tell you to wait until your words become weapons, not emotional flares. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. In other words, be silent while they panic. And when you speak, make it the line they remember. People fear what they can't reach, respect what they can't control, admire what they don't fully understand. That's why the most powerful presence is often the most scarce. Machiavelli taught rulers that accessibility dilutes authority. When you're everywhere, you become background noise. When you're always talking, people stop listening. But when you're selective, when you choose when and how to be seen, your presence starts to carry weight. Scarcity creates value, and silence creates scarcity. The people we call unforgettable, they weren't always the loudest. They weren't explaining their every move. They weren't live streaming their transformation. They were working in silence, building in quiet, becoming undeniable. And then they arrived. Machiavelli would say, men rise from one ambition to another. First, they seek to secure themselves against attack. Then they attack others. The silent phase. That's when you're securing yourself. And the moment you're ready, you emerge with such presence There's nothing left to argue. You don't need validation, because you've built proof. So now, the challenge is yours. Where are you talking too much and saying too little? Where are you giving away power by over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-sharing? Where would silence serve you more than speed? This isn't about becoming distant. It's about becoming deliberate. The next time you want to react, wait. The next time you want to announce, hold. The next time you feel the pressure to be loud, remember this: the strongest minds rarely need to prove themselves, because the ones who speak last often shape the ending. If this message cut through the noise, if a part of you is ready to trade loudness for leverage, leave a comment. Where in your life are you ready to shut up and win? And if you're building a quieter, sharper kind of power, subscribe. Because we're not here to shout, we're here to strategize. Until next time, keep shining, not to be seen, but to see.